And let's go. After the last lesson of where, I talked a little bit about content, and some of you reached out and said, hey, listen, I feel like you blew right by content and what we're supposed to create, how we create it, and where we put it. So I decided to go a little deeper dive. I usually tell people about the relationship theory, right? Marriage theory in terms of communications and creating content. And here's how it looks. I look at creating content in this pyramid, and on the top of this pyramid, you'll see what's called pillar content. And that could be anything. So this is general communications content ideas. So at the top, you have pillar content, and that is long form content. We're talking about a podcast episode, a video, an article, an event like a webinar or an in-person event. That's at the top. A lot of effort and insight and research to create that. That's your long form pillar content. It's what everything else is going to stand on top of. A little bit further down on that pyramid is called micro content, a little bit smaller, miniature versions of your pillar content. So let's just stick with podcasting because that's what we're talking about here in this course. In terms of podcasting, you can take little audio clips from your episode, big episode, pillar content, smaller audio clips, and you can share that on whatever platforms you've decided and you're comfortable sharing information. You could take a really great quote and turn that into a graphic and share that on your social platforms. Pull it directly from an episode. You could create a meme. Who doesn't like memes? Exactly. All of you like memes. Create a meme out of that. And that's a visual. That's more picture and less words. So that's the idea, is these things are going from very, very large, but very macro, to getting smaller in that micro content, getting a little more narrow. Keep in mind, the content that you share, the content of your micro content, should focus on the lessons that your audience will learn from the podcast episode you created. What are they getting out of it? What are they going to be able to do with that information? Keep in mind that XYZ statement. Keep in mind with that Z, what are the things that they're going to be able to do because of this specific episode, not just your show in general, this specific episode. Why should they spend time and pay attention to this particular episode? Think about that when you're creating content. On the bottom of this content pyramid, you see share. And again, I'm telling you to share on the platforms that you are comfortable interacting on. This is an example of more is not necessarily better. I'd rather you focus your efforts on 2 platforms you like using on a regular basis than 5. Because now you're going to divide your efforts. You're not going to like the other 3. You're going to neglect them a little bit. I'd rather have you focus your efforts something manageable, and that is completely up to you. What is manageable? So this is how I think while I'm creating any type of content, but we're specifically here talking about podcast content. There's your long form episode. Create that micro content, letting people know what will they get out of it if they spend time with this episode. Lead them right there. Open the door and say, if you walk through this door by listening to this episode, you will get this. Focus more on what they'll get out of it, what they'll become, what fear you'll be able to allay, what lesson you'll be able to teach them. Focus more on that and less on, hey, today I interviewed this person who has a degree in whatever. I understand that feels comfortable. I understand that feels formal, but focus more on the audience's point of view when you're creating content. What are they going to be able to get out of it? What are they going to be able to do tomorrow because of your episode, because of your insight that they couldn't do today? Focus on that when creating content. Now, going a little bit deeper, we'll talk about the relationship theory. Now, here's the idea with the relationship theory. This is theory. This ain't how it works. The relationship theory says, well, you have coffee with someone, it goes well, and then you get married. Well, anybody who's married out there, congratulations, but that ain't how it works. There's some steps in the middle. It's not just coffee and the altar. There are some things in the middle. This is relationship theory. Here is relationship actual, or somewhat actual. There's a coffee that someone agrees to. Maybe you go to movies. Maybe you go to a dinner. Maybe you go away for a weekend or a vacation. Maybe you cycle through this middle step a bunch of times, and then eventually you know the person well enough where you say, okay, I'm gonna hitch my wagon to this person. This is relationship actual. Here's where I'm going with this. Here's content relationship theory. Someone comes across a piece of your content, you release a podcast episode, and then everybody rushes to listen, follow, and subscribe. You missed a few steps in the middle, right? So going back to this relationship actual, here's content relationship actual. They'll see what you're doing. Maybe they'll listen to some of that micro content, and they might do this cycle a bunch of times, taking a look at what you're doing and consuming that micro content. It's like hors d'oeuvres. I'll take a little bite, but hold on. I'm not ready to hitch my wagon to you just yet. And they'll cycle through this a few times, right? They listen to your micro content. Maybe they liked or shared a couple of your graphics or the quotes that you created and shared. And maybe after a while of them doing that, they'll go to the next step and they'll actually click on the link to listen to an episode of your podcast. They'll take a deep dive into some of your pillar content. That's great. But again, keep in mind, they're going to cycle through this relationship a few times. And then maybe eventually they'll share some of your content. And that's social proof. That is someone saying, hey, I like this stuff enough to stand by it, to share it with my inner circle on this social platform. And they might cycle through this for a while until they eventually, the ultimate goal as a podcaster, to entertain and inform, and maybe do both, is to get someone to subscribe to the show. That is their ultimate way of saying, okay, I like you enough that I want to make sure I don't miss out on anything that you share, because what I see from you is of value to me. And that is the content relationship. That's actually how it works. So take this into consideration in terms of once you're regularly recording episodes, how are you going to make sure that the world knows about what you created? How are you going to make good work well known? And you can do it with using that content theory, but use the actual and not the theoretical.